To rise from having nothing to qualifications in abundance. Nothing no one can say to you. All trying to make paper moves. Came from living on basic foods. I'm Jamaican too, but I love when auntie cooks jollof and pepe stew. Team wins, then I praise the crew. If I win, then they praise me too. But when I make M's from W's, know the whole tribe celebrating moves. Pops built the foundation, made every accommodation home. Raised me to a real man, show me how a king sits on his throne. They think I'm writing lyrics, this is physics. I've been writing codes, trying to free your mind so them evil spirits can let you go. Freedom, freedom. Cause most people enslaved in this matrix, this fake shit. And I just been here waiting, cause they sleeping. Every day's doing the same shit, chasing those papers, can't wait till they awaken.
Give me freedom over money, less than money buy, know my people freedom. Less than money buy, know my people freedom. Less than money buy, know my people freedom.
Yeah.
Give me millions for my real ones, cause money don't mean nothing unless my people eating. Money don't mean nothing unless my people eating. Money don't mean nothing unless my people eating.
Yeah. I do this for my family, who raised up and nurtured the man in me. I've been out here and I've been planting seeds in my garden, water, in my money trees. Yeah. I do this for my family, who raised up and nurtured the man in me. I've been out here and I've been planting seeds in my garden, water, in my money trees. Yeah. I do this for my family.
GM, welcome to Decentralizing. I want to talk today a little bit about why I'm in Bitcoin, going back to basic fundamentals. So my name's Nate, and I used to be a high school teacher. I finished college in like 2006 here in the Albuquerque area, and I started teaching to some students here. And my wife's dad passed away, and we reevaluated our lives, and I started a business doing web design for like a year and a half here in Albuquerque. And I had some original clients, and it started to work out for a little bit, but honestly, we got into debt. I was overconfident, and the business didn't work out. And the great financial crisis was just on the horizon, which we did not know at the time. So we packed everything up, and we moved to South Korea, and we decided we were going to teach there because I didn't know anybody who had ever done anything like that. You know, Albuquerque is kind of a small place. You know, we only have about, New Mexico only has a couple million people, and Albuquerque maybe like 500,000 in the area, and I'm just from like the suburbs here. So I don't know, and my wife, we didn't know much about the outside world. We'd never eaten Korean food. We'd never tried anything much more than like New Mexican food and Italian food and like American food, you know? And our lives were about to change all kinds because 2 months after we arrived in South Korea, the great financial crisis began with Lehman Brothers. And we watched our paychecks and all of our estimates for the year decrease by 30%. And the realization hit us that, oh shit, all that money we thought we were gonna save may not happen. Now in the end, we still saved quite a bit of money. So teaching abroad is definitely a great way to dollar cost average into crypto assets, not financial advice. But if you're looking to find ways to generate cash flow, if you do a lot of research and do your due diligence, that is a life path that worked for us. We had a fantastic time in South Korea, and it opened our mind to entire new worlds and possibilities. And I went back to the US, and you know, I got my master's in teaching, and I certification, and so did my wife. She got her certification in teaching, and both of us continued. You know, we taught for a year while we were doing that back here in Albuquerque again, and then we headed off to the Middle East, where we taught for a year with Department of Defense schools in Bahrain, and then after that, it was 5 years in South China. In the second year in China, that's when I discovered Bitcoin in 2013. I discovered it because, you know, after let's go back to the great financial crisis. When your estimate is off by 30%, like you do the math and you're thinking, this is how much money I'm gonna save, and then everything's off by 20 or 30% because of an external event, a black swan that you couldn't predict or control, then you really start questioning things. And that led me down a rabbit hole right there about how, we're going to be responsible if we decided we wanted to continue teaching abroad and make that a career. Now, if you're going to make that a career choice, the problem with that is that nobody's going to give you retirement funds. And most countries that you go and teach in, they have limited pension funds available, like if you're a foreigner, for example. And or none whatsoever. No plan for like if you're an outsider from that country and you're not a citizen. So therefore, that the only option really is managing your own funds if you want to retire one day. And so, we started doing that, and I started investing in the markets. And I started where most people start, traditional assets, and going in there, and I learned about value investing and Warren Buffett's methodology for trying to look for where value might be created, trying to find the intrinsic value of stocks, and then try to see where they're undervalued, and then find a great asset and hold it forever. That was like the theory that resonated most with me from the start. And then trying to find I didn't know what it was called. We call these stores of value, but like that's what I was really looking for, was I didn't mind some risk, we're young, but like I also wanted some unrisky plays, especially, because here we are living in the great financial crisis, the greatest economic crash that I've ever seen. And even still in 2013, the markets were quite volatile. That great financial crisis was causing busts and booms in the stock market for like 3 or 4 years there. So a lot of volatility, and even though I was investing in some of those things and I had some lucky entry points, and I did make money that way as well, I didn't make nearly as much as later in crypto. But I found crypto because of that search, that thirst for knowledge, that continual, like I'm always just looking. I'm like, where's that tap of knowledge coming from? Where am I going to get the data from? I'm on Twitter all the time nowadays, and Reddit is a location, but back then it was DIGG.com. And so I was using DIGG.com as an app, and it would send me all these cool curated news stories that had been upvoted that other people liked. And so you'd get these really interesting ideas presented to you that were the forefront of science, technology, and also like social phenomenon as well, social and psychological phenomenon. So I found that very interesting, and it led to a lot of cool rabbit holes. But the biggest one, of course, was Bitcoin. And I tried diving down that rabbit hole a couple times, unsuccessfully, and it led to like dead ends often in the early days. Like, how do I actually buy this thing? How do I actually get some money into some kind of a reputable exchange or something? And then how do I custody it? It's not simple. So it wasn't easy in the early days. Finally, I wired some money to Mt. Gox and got my first Bitcoin there. Luckily, I was able to get it off in time before that hack occurred. But Coinbase was a lifesaver because, honestly, that was a very easy way that I could simply connect my American bank account to a crypto account, and then I had my Chinese bank account connected to my Chinese Bitcoin account. So when I would receive my paychecks from the school, it was easy to take a portion of them, buy Bitcoin, because it was connected right to the Chinese bank account. In fact, their Bitcoin site even worked in English at that time, and I had translators translation apps that I could use, like in Google Chrome and stuff. So it worked good enough, It was clunky, but it worked. And I would send my Bitcoin right for whatever payments I needed to make, pretty much instantly. Within a couple hours, this was all settled and done, and a done deal, and it was already on the other side of the world. Versus Western Union, and the other method, which was we would have to go with a coworker to the Chinese bank. We were at ABC Bank, the Agricultural Bank of China, and it would take about an hour or two of a coworker's time. And during that time, while we would sit there and lots of paperwork would be filled out and lots of things signed, it would take forever. A lot of red stamps were applied. Finally, in the very last steps, you sign your money over completely to this trusted person who's standing next to you, the coworker that was willing to go to school with you, or willing to go to the bank with you and waste their lunch. And then, if you're a nice person, you like take that person out to lunch, or you do something because like they wasted their time, or they used a lot of time helping you out, But this is the process every time. And then you wait days, and then you pay more fees as well because cross-border payments sent through services like Western Union cost more money. So, okay, maybe part of the reason I have a hard time understanding why the world is having a slower adoption than I expected into Bitcoin is because most people didn't experience currency devaluation firsthand, so they don't really see, like, they don't see why this is a thing. I mean, to me, there were a couple of main selling points to Bitcoin from the very beginning. Limited supply. The $21 million Bitcoin hard cap ensures that no entity is going to go in there and manipulate the supply or artificially print money. And to me, that was very attractive because even gold isn't fixed. Like, we can find new gold. You could go, the US might, or China or Russia one day, Japan, somebody's going to maybe discover an asteroid that's just filled with gold one day. And then we'll find a way to mine it. Or maybe we dig deep enough in the earth and there's areas where gold exists that we didn't even know it existed. It's an unknown though, and it's an unknown. So do you want to like continue to depend on a store of value? Like, I've invested in gold from time to time, and I'm not, like Natalie Brunell said when she recently debated with Peter Schiff, like, I don't feel insecure and I'm not going to diss on gold. Bitcoiners have no reason to feel insecurity about gold and it being a real attack vector against Bitcoin, because it's not. I'm sorry. Like, Bitcoin is superior on so many levels. So honestly, if you're a true believer in gold and you're like a gold maxi, I kind of feel bad for you because you're not like opening your mind enough to understand that maybe you should diversify as well into Bitcoin and other assets. Because really, at the end of the day, why else are you in gold? Like, if you're wearing jewelry, that's one thing. I understand enjoying, beautiful jewelry. That's different. But what I don't understand is allowing your own finances and your family's future to be debased. I don't want to do that. Like, I love my wife and I love my kids, and all I can do is think about them like on the streets, right? If I don't do my job. And my wife is like a hard worker. She's going to do the job too. She ain't going to lay back and let that happen either. But I do think that we live in unprecedented times, and you need to have your eyes open, and you need to pay attention, and you need to be ready for the shifting sands of the geopolitical risk that exists in our world. There's political uncertainty all over the place, and many nation states are getting angry with each other, and we're in a period of deglobalization. So, Bitcoin keeps being called a risk asset because there are a bunch of people that risk it, and they go and they day trade it, and they treat it like a risk-on asset, but I don't believe that its intrinsic properties have ever merited that. It's only because it's the adoption curve, right? It's like new people coming in still. But one day you reach a point of equilibrium where enough people are into the asset class that we're not going to have tremendous growth anymore, and it's just going to sit there like a stable, boring digital gold. That's what it'll be one day in the future. I might be dead by then, but all I know is when we do get all that, after all that adoption's done, the intrinsic properties of this asset and the high transaction fees aren't something that you're going to want to move around much. Like, it's just a place to park money and wait. And the Wisconsin Teachers Board or whatever, they have a pension or a fund of some kind that they just put $100 million into IBIT, which is BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. Okay, I'm digressing a bit. The title of this video is How to Overthink the Title for Your Bitcoin and Crypto Video. This morning I wanted to talk about like 3 or 4 different topics. I wanted to get into like a little bit about the real story of Bitcoin and why I'm such like an ardent believer and follower in the tech, and how I do think it's hope for the next generation and for humanity. I wanted to talk a little bit about political valence even at some point, and the idea that Bitcoin values are values that are only displayed by one part of the political spectrum and not the other. This is something I don't agree with. Like, I have always felt that Bitcoin has so many values that are positive moral values that we should aspire to as humans, that those values shouldn't be laid claim to by only one political philosophy or ideology. That's another topic I wanted to talk about, because although I feel like some of the most early adopters have tended to be on the right side of the political spectrum, it may lead the outside world, those who aren't, the so-called normies, those who aren't involved in Bitcoin and crypto and weren't the early adopters, who maybe don't like tech so much, it might lead them to just think that this is tech that doesn't represent their values. And that's where I diverge significantly from most people, because I just don't agree with the idea that Bitcoin only has a few values that are either conservative values or liberal values only. That's a bunch of bullshit. Bitcoin is crazy awesome on so many levels. It is the answer to the wealth gap if it's applied correctly. If it's applied incorrectly, it could accelerate wealth gap, but I think that it's not going to do that. I think this is a way to decrease the wealth gap. It's a way to democratize finance and decentralize the system. You want to talk about removing centralized power and control from systems. You want to talk about what's the real escape from the matrix, the escape valve from currency debasement and manipulation and control and power. Well, that's what Bitcoin is. When I realized it was a network that couldn't be stopped if it reached a critical mass, that's when I invested, because I said, well, what's the point of fighting something that can't be fought? This is a peer-to-peer decentralized network. It's like Napster without a boss, but way more powerful, because we're not just downloading songs here. We're talking about money, and we can put songs on the blockchain too if we want. Like, it doesn't matter. Ghostface Killah recently did that, a drop where he threw down an ordinal that I own, and that's music. Like, look, this tech is big. It's huge. When people think it's a currency and they fall short because it has some currency properties, that's where they screw up. When they think it's digital gold and then they're like, well, it's not perfect gold, or it's this or that's not right about it, they're also failing to understand that it's not just digital gold. It's not just digital property. It's not just digital capital. It's D, it's all, or E, it's all the above, right? It has properties that perhaps are hybrid. And I know that that maybe like breaks some people's brains because, oh my God, it doesn't fall into any of the traditional categories. But you know what? Life doesn't fall into traditional categories all the time. Things aren't always black and white. There's a lot of gray in the world. And I think Bitcoin has a lot of values that everybody, Bitcoin's for your enemies. Bitcoin's for political dissidents. Bitcoin's for those who want censorship, resistance, and autonomy in their lives. Bitcoin's for those who are immigrants and, freedom fighters. And some governments will call freedom fighters terrorists, depending on what side of history and who wins. But the bottom line is, do you want to live in a world that continues to tend toward having a single centralized power that runs everything? That we either have a world that's dollarized only, or a world that's, the Chinese yuan is the dominant currency that everyone uses, or the ruble? Like, why should one nation arbitrarily control everything? And I'm not anti-American on this, because I do believe actually that the US dollar can proliferate much more freely and widely and more openly if the government understood the tech and they enabled the Ethereum rails to do that through USDC, because most of the world that's experiencing hyperinflation, they don't want Bitcoin, they want dollars. Sorry to say, my friends, but they don't want that. They want dollars right now because they want a stable, or something that appears stable when compared to their currency. Now, there are some countries that are still loving Bitcoin anyway, though. And even though it's unstable, and they're willing to take that risk. But the bottom line is, Bitcoin's not anti-fiat. Bitcoin's not against all that. It's like that's like saying gold's against the system. Like, gold's anti-system. Gold's not anti-establishment by its very nature. It's just a form of money that's somewhat removed from the entire financial system, but it's heavily manipulated through the derivatives markets anyway. And there's a lot of paper claims to gold out there that may not even exist. So it's not easy to know if your gold is actually existing. Do you want to go try to do a proof of reserve on your assets of gold if you have gold in a vault somewhere? Good luck, like getting a proof of reserve on that. With Bitcoin, you can prove that it's there at any moment in time if you're holding custody of the asset. So going back into the Bitcoin story, though, for me and my family, what happened was in 2014, just a year after I got into Bitcoin, I had appendicitis, basically, and I was living in China, and when my appendix was extracted, they found a tumor with cancer, and it was appendix cancer, so I had to come back to the US and have several surgeries, and we continued to just hold our crypto assets through all that life volatility, and I've been cancer-free for a while now, but I feel like there were, that was a dark, difficult time. And one of the things that gave me a lot of solace, to be quite honest, was knowing that if things went really south, at least we had made those investments in crypto assets, and those were just sitting there not being touched. And that would be something that I could leave Aaron in the unfortunate event that I didn't make it through cancer. I had to have many surgeries over the years to repair the initial surgery because I got a hernia from it, and I had to get an abdominal mesh installed. So these ongoing issues made it difficult, and I went back to school and I got a second master's degree because I frankly couldn't work. I was in a lot of pain for a couple of years. But I still worked remotely, and I was working for one of my professors doing digital marketing during that time. But it was difficult I gave up teaching, which I really hated doing because I loved being in front of the classroom. I love having an audience, as you can tell, and having people that I can have a discourse with, and I feel like it's really rewarding to help other people and, affect that change in their lives and empower others. And that's what I want to do with Bitcoin right now, is I want to spend time affecting that change and having those conversations with people, because I feel like this has been a greatly misunderstood asset class. There's been just such a fucking hit job that's been done by the mainstream media and politicians on both sides, honestly, up to this point. It's been a 15-year-long hit job, and it's been done by the IMF, and it's been done by the Bank of England, and it's been done by our Fed and our Treasury, and so on and so forth. Like, there have been so many highly ranked people in finance and respected people in finance, Nobel laureates like Rubini, who sit there and still call Bitcoin a scam and a Ponzi. And this is like still the battle we have to fight, because they literally won't go and read something for 200 hours or 100 hours because it's just brain breaking to them, the idea that they might be wrong. And that's where we need to come in, all of us. Instead of sitting there and saying, well, have fun staying poor and you're too dumb, that's not going to convert people anymore. That's early days thinking. We're to the mainstream now, folks. And when you get to the mainstream, you got to do what Sailor's doing. And that is working with people from diverse backgrounds and helping them find the way that they can adapt this asset to their needs and their lifestyle and the way that they can see the value for them. So I do feel like sometimes our community is too insular. Sometimes we become an echo chamber where we just sit there and share the same memes and the same values, and we don't reevaluate our positions, and we don't look at the traditional orthodoxy of Bitcoin, the church of Bitcoin, the cult of Bitcoin, which I'm a member, many of us are members. But nobody wants to say that, nobody wants to call it that, nobody wants to think about change. But that has been changing, right? You've seen the movements with Ordinals and Casey and Udi and Eric and Dan Held and all these folks. There's a lot of people that actually are ready for change on Bitcoin. We're ready to, reach the mainstream in a way that's much deeper than before. The Bitcoin ETFs are mainstreaming institutional finance, and they're really getting the investor class on board. But it's time to get the mainstream retail folks on board, because that's why I got into this in the first place, is for myself, to help myself, to help my family, to protect us. And I feel like there's been such a hit job on the asset for so long that people aren't going to get in right now when they should before the institutions do. That ability to front run the institutions, well, they've really succeeded. The institutions have really succeeded in getting their agenda across and scaring the shit out of the American population, because most people think that this is just like a Ponzi scheme and a risk. Look, I don't even know if most people is the right way to put it, but some people think that. And I just watched like a Bitcoin video yesterday where a dude was at, Ohio State University giving a graduation speech, and all he said to the crowd was, keep an open mind, study some Bitcoin, basically. And they booed the shit out of him, okay? That is how much the anti-Bitcoin propaganda army has been running shit. And it really disturbs me, because the values that Bitcoin is promulgating are directly correlated with the same values that Elizabeth Warren is extolling, okay? She's talking about going after the big guys and the big banks. Does she not understand Bitcoin is Occupy Wall Street 2.0? It always has been. Like, the very first etching that was done into the blockchain was done by Satoshi himself. And he said, Chancellor on brink of second bailout, Bank of England, like, the message was super clear. He was saying that I'm creating this shit because y'all are spending money you're not allowed to spend, and you're manipulating it. I'm not against government spending money, by the way. I think that it can and should be done in a proper way, and that governments need to provide some services to their citizens. Many in this space don't even think that's something that needs to be done, maybe. And I think that if you're not in Bitcoin and crypto, perhaps you think that everybody in Bitcoin feels that way. Well, I don't feel that way. Like, I feel like governments do have some responsibilities to their citizens, and they do have the right to control their own currencies and mess with them. But we also have the right as citizens to exist outside of that system. We don't need to be controlled by the borders of one petty nation state. None of us do. We're all global citizens. We're all autonomous individuals. And I feel like we should have the rights to travel. We should have the right to movement. And we should have the right to be able to theoretically select the jurisdictions in which we operate if we've been able to secure those rights. And it's not easy to do that in the modern world. Most nation states want to keep you in their border. They want to control you. They want to have access to your funds so that they can experience that Cantillon effect of being near. Most nations have some officials of some form that get themselves as close to that money printer as possible and try to capture those flows so they can ingratiate themselves and they can build a dynasty that never dies. So if you want to understand why the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing, it's not just taxation issues, okay? It's not just because we refuse to tax anybody who's wealthy in this country. It's also because and maybe even more fundamentally because, and this is where perhaps progressives aren't seeing this, is because of the fact that this system in and of itself perpetuates a gap between the rich and the poor. Each time they print more, that printing excess goes to assets for the wealthy, but for those who don't have any assets, it just goes to go survive, right? Like you go buy some consumable goods at Walmart so you can survive and feed your family with that stimulus check, okay? But the financial media wants to go and tell everybody, they want to say that everybody was out there YOLOing on GameStop and Dogecoin during the last pandemic. Well, that's not what I saw. I saw a lot of people suffering still. And the reality is that they're sending, the SEC and the DOJ and all that after us. The full force of the government is attacking crypto because they're trying to scapegoat us as the problem, when actually we are providing a solution to the general person, to the general population. And I am tired of that shit. I'm tired of us letting them get away with that. We cannot let the government on either side of any nation continue to, propagate this idea that we don't have a right to be free and we don't have a right to control our own money to some extent. They have rights to arbitrarily tax in their borders, and they have the right to do that in their currency. And when we take our Bitcoin and we exchange it with their currency, they can choose how to handle that, if they want to tax it or not in any given jurisdiction. But to tell us that we need to have every transaction watched if it's under $300, we need to know completely how you're operating, like every single bit and piece. And we're going to subject you to much more strict monitoring regimes and regulations than any other industry has ever been subjected to, even the cannabis industry, which you want to go buy cannabis and you have to go to the ATM in there because they can't take your card because of Operation Chokepoint. And now we got this Operation Chokepoint 2.0. And now they're trying to use the pretext of war so that they can start censoring things. This happened yesterday with Bitcoin mining. and the recent letter written to the administration. And the implications are severe. So we need to all kind of be on the lookout, and we all need to make our voices heard, because we can't be allowing either party in the United States or any nation to continue impoverishing our own citizens. Because that's the blowback. That's what people don't understand, okay? If the US starts banning Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin gets dirtier, okay? It gets dirtier because it moves to jurisdictions, where it's not going to be properly regulated, and the carbon emissions won't be looked at. So, and then that's just one issue, right? The other issue is that's not going to strengthen America, okay? If you want to strengthen the United States, the U.S. should be going and getting more Bitcoin and going and mining ourselves instead of considering shutting it down or considering removing ourselves from the world's future financial system. It's just, that's an asinine idea. It's not a good idea. We need to be on the forefront of this. And whether you love it or hate it, you need to understand that this is unstoppable tech. Okay, you can stop the flows into your country's currency. So in other words, if I am like Venezuela and I want to make sure that there are no ways to exchange Venezuelan bolivars into Bitcoin, that's something they can control. So you can stop Bitcoin within your borders. At least you can stop the exchange of it into your currency. But can you stop a Bitcoin to Bitcoin transaction within your country? Good luck. Like, I don't know. This all comes from the need to control and dominate. Nations continue to do this, and it's silly. So yeah, I think Bitcoin's awesome. I think it's hope. It's a chance away from all the other negative shit. And I really feel like it helped me get through. I know this has been an all over the place ADHD conversation, but like Bitcoin definitely helped me and my family survive our own personal struggles during the whole cancer time, while we had 2 children, while my father was struggling with dementia, and and then ultimately, you know, he passed away. It's been a very turbulent few years for us, and I'm sure that many people have also experienced that. And all I'm going to say is that I'm grateful that I've had this asset that's at least been backing us, because it could have gotten so much more dire. Our lives could have been much worse. So I really hope that you give Bitcoin a look and that you question the biases that you have in your head. If something seems stupid or not right, that's absolutely why you should investigate it, not why you should jump to conclusions about it. Like, many of the best opportunities in life are found in the places where people say, don't do that, don't look at that, it's dangerous. Yeah, I mean, you don't jump headfirst into something that's dangerous. You do a lot of research. And that's what I did, a lot of research. Take the time, do the learning. There's so many videos, it's way easier now. I really think that this is something that's transformative, and I wish more people would adopt it and make it a part of their life. I wish I could find a better way to help others understand just the transformative effect it's had. Anyways, much love, guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Take care of each other, and have a good one.